As a barista, the challenge is to make specialty coffee easier to understand, more accessible to even more people. Because I'm from Bordeaux, to meet the challenge, I decided to use a very French analogy. With wine, it's pretty easy to talk about regions, varieties, and tasting, kind of common wine tasting language. If wine knowledge has crossed borders, why not apply its language to coffee? In fact, the French translation for barista is coffee sommelier. Yes, French people and their wine. So, I decided to share my passion, our passion for specialty coffee, using a parallels between wine and coffee. I sometimes compare white wine with its note of citrus and stone fruit to wash process, and red wine with their berry nuts to natural process. This comparison inspired the experiment that you will discover during our wine tasting today. My experiment took place in the Dipito region of Nicaragua, at the finca Buenos Aires, belonging to Olman Valadares. This maracatura grew in the shade, in sandy soil, bringing water and nutriment needed for a ground coffee. For my experiment, I need a lot of sweetness to make it accessible, and a lot of fruit to bring my coffee closer to the world of wine. The sweetness from Maragojip and fruit from Caturra, a hybrid of these two varieties, was perfect for my experiment. To complete this vintage, I developed a special process, Bacchus process, a playing technique used in winemaking, in coffee. On tasting, you could think that it is a natural process, but it is in fact an entirely other process. I will detail later. I use cold cups to reach the perfect temperature for our tasting. And for today's wine tasting, our red wine is in the form of an espresso, with note of blackcurrant, gooseberry, and sugarcane, with a full and generous body, fruity in the first sip, and develop a surprising sweetness in second sip, and a round and velvety finish. Please enjoy. Bonne dégustation. Hop là. Sorry. I chose a small made drink for the right balance to the perfect milk to coffee ratio. When combined with milk, only the blackcurrant remains from my espresso, and the milk developing new notes of toffee and a light cocoa finish. A young wine needs to breathe, incorporating oxygen to develop its full potential. To optimize my coffee for my main drink, I've used these aerators made for wine. Incorporating air brings more sweetness in my coffee. For my main drink, I've chosen a fresh, full-fat milk to make them even more generous. And so reminder, notes of blackcurrant, toffee, and a light cocoa finish. Ladies first. Notes of blackcurrant, toffee, and a light cocoa finish. Bonne dégustation. Please enjoy. So reminder, note of blackcurrant, toffee, and a light cocoa finish. Please enjoy. Bonne dégustation. So reminder, notes of blackcurrant, toffee, and a light cocoa finish. Please enjoy. Et bonne dégustation. So reminder, note of blackcurrant, toffee, and a light cocoa finish. Please enjoy. Bonne dégustation. Okay. Now, let's go back to our process. Winemakers in Bordeaux region use a process called cliquage. It's a winemaker of bubbles pour oxygen through the fermenting wine until it's fully saturated in oxygen. This makes the wine smoother, more balanced. Inspired by this process, I decided to click my coffee beans to make my coffee smoother, more balanced, and more accessible. I asked Allman to harvest the coffee cherry later than usual to develop the taste that you experience in my espresso with this note of blackcurrant. Immediately after dry and pulping the cherry, I expose the bean to a flow of pure oxygen in an airtight tank over 48 hours. 5 minutes of pure oxygen every 3 hours for a controlled fermentation. Then, 18 days drying on a shade, complete my process. Because I was inspired by winemaking process, I call my process Bacchus, after the Roman god of wine. The resulting cup is a significant increase in sweetness. This is due to a decrease in tannin that is naturally present on coffee and in wine. Now, let's go back to our original question. What is specialty coffee? To me, it's a result of human chain, linking passionate and incredibly skilled people with one goal, a perfect aromatic drink. In other words, a Grand Cru. Now, listen through this parallel between wine to coffee. The one grower is your coffee farmer. One maker, your coffee roaster, who are also oenologists. The barista, as we saw earlier, our sommelier. And finally, coffee shop become wine merchant. These two worlds are so close that today, I'm going to give you a wine tasting experience where coffee is in your wine glass. Now, let's go back to our espressos. I let them cool down to reach the perfect temperature for a red wine, bringing intensity to my drink. Now, I invite you to smell a wood in a vial in front of you. It will take you to a free trip in a coffee plantation. This wood comes from the coffee tree which gave birth to your beverage today. A few moments ago, I started an infusion with 1 gram of wood into 100 milliliters of sugarcane syrup. Now I'm adding 8 milliliters of this coffee tree wood syrup to my mixture, bringing note of wood like a barrel-aged wine and balance to my drink. To better express the natural aroma on my coffee, I'm adding 4 milliliters of vinegar, in which infused blackcurrant and gooseberry over 3 days. 100 grams of blackcurrant, 130 grams of gooseberry, and a half liter of vinegar. The tartness developed with the late harvest will be enhanced by the vinegar, contributing to create an illusion of wine in my drink. Now, to bring it all together, I'm adding 70 milliliters of this Chateau Valadares 2017. This is actually a cold brew of our Maracatura Bacchus, made it 7 days ago, brewing over 2 days with 50 grams of ground coffee per liter. After many tests, I found that this type of brew gives us clearer and more intense aroma, and the slight aging and more body to my drink. My final step is to warm always the same coffee tree wood. As a callback to our one barrel are toasted on the inside to help aging. This smoke reproduces the aging effect found on a vintage reserve wine. Okay. Now, I invite you to drink in 2 sips. In the first sip, you will have the balanced freshness and acidity of a fine red wine. Please take. And now, in second sip, you will have the coffee wood smoke, develop the fruit thin on a fine, vintage. Sorry. Taking us back to our espresso. Thank you for your time.